Mew is an elusive Pokemon. In Gen 1, it was literally snuck into the code. There was no way to catch it without using a glitch, and it's not even listed in the official player's guide. The TCG was no exception, especially if you lived outside of Japan. Mew cards could be really hard to come by. Almost half of the Mew cards that have ever been printed were promo cards, meaning that you had to go to a special event or buy some kind of special product to get them. You couldn't get them through opening packs like all other Pokemon. So I'm splitting the Mew video into two parts. First, I'm going to cover all of the promo cards, mainly because they weren't really used competitively. They were more about rarity. Part 2 will cover Mew cards that could be obtained through regular packs and were intended more for competitive play. So the first promo we'll look at is the Wizard Promo number 8. Wizard Promo number 9 was just a holographic version of this same card. Devolution Beam was gimmicky enough to make it into a couple of rogue decks back in the base set era. It could be paired with Fossil Aerodactyl to lock out your opponent from using any evolution cards. But the only evolution cards that really worked against at the time would be Alakazam in Damage Swap or Blastoise in Rain Dance. Most other decks just relied on big basics. They didn't have to rely completely on evolution cards. But Psywave also had a niche in anti-Haymaker decks, as for 1 energy you could one-shot revenge kill a Hitmonchan or Movie Promo Mewtwo if it had any damage on it, or if you just have a plus power in hand. And this promo was reprinted as different promos 5 years later with slightly changed wording and energy costs for those attacks, but it got different artwork for the Japan and English releases. Next up, we have the Bubble Mew promo. Now, this was part of the Japanese vending machine series, which had over 100 cards in it, but only 6 of them ever made it into English releases. This is the case for a lot of Mew promo cards, so I'll just throw up the Bulbapedia translations with them. Psydupe is a fun attack, and it plays into Mew's ability to use any attack that's in the game, but for this particular card, you're having to pay the cost of Psydupe and then the additional cost of whatever attack you're trying to copy, so there aren't any situations I can think of where this would be more useful than just powering up any other Pokemon to attack. Here we have the most famous and infamous Mew card. It's probably the most recognizable. It was the promo you got when you bought a ticket for Pokemon the Movie 2000, The Power of One! It was featured in the actual movie, and it was only available during the first week of the movie's release. If you bought a movie ticket after the first week, you would get one of 3 Legendary Bird promos. Ancient Mew was actually written in a runic language, and because of this, it was banned from the TCG. It caused too many problems at tournaments when people would try to use it because it wasn't a language that everyone could just pick up and read. The Pokemon website at the time did have a translation guide so that you could figure out what this card actually said. So in case you didn't know, Mew is a Psychic-type Pokemon, and its attack is for 2 Psychic Energy, and it's called Psyche, or Psych. It deals 40 damage, which isn't bad, but this Mew only has 30 HP, which makes it very difficult to use. It has a weakness to Psychic, no resistance, as you can see in those golden triangles, and that middle part of the card where the Pokedex entry would usually go says something along the lines of new species, little cat, or evil. You can't see it in any of the scans, but Mew actually has 4 symbols around it within the card art. I had to take this picture at an angle under direct light just to get them to show up enough to really show in the video, but those 4 symbols are supposed to stand for birth, enthronement, right of succession, and death. The first Japanese print of this card actually used a more speckly kind of holographic material, and it also had a printing error at the bottom where it listed Nintendo as the copyright owners instead of Nintendo. Another little tidbit of trivia is the weakness and resistance triangles on Ancient Mew show up on the bottom of the totem pole in this Japan exclusive Neo promo folder. The Southern Islands Mew was part of a promo set that put together tropical postcards that feature Pokemon. This promo connected to Pidgeot and Onix to complete the Rainbow Island Sky set. This card did get an English release, but it was printed on holographic paper, so it's kind of hard to make out, so here's a translation anyway. Rainbow Wave is actually a really good attack. Most decks you're going to come up against around this time were all one type, one type of Pokemon, which means that you could deal 20 damage to all of your opponent's Pokemon, deal some great spread damage for 1 energy. However, Mew has another drawback, which is, again, it has 30 HP. So it's going to get knocked out by anything in 1 hit. This is by far my favorite card art for any Mew card, and sadly, it's another Japan exclusive card. Shiny Mew came with copies of Coral magazine, which still to this day include promo cards and release a lot of Pokemon news. This card was the premiere of Mew's shiny coloration in the TCG, and it just makes for an all-around beautiful card. You have the contrasting energy cost colors, that rainbow background, and then just really great, solid art for Shiny Mew. Shiny Mew actually has 2 pretty great attacks. Flash Search is a great utility card for getting the trainers or Pokemon that you need out of your deck really quick. Mystic Fire is great. It not only deals damage, but it guarantees a special condition on your opponent's Pokemon. But due to energy cost, you're really going to be using one attack or the other within a deck most of the time. And that sadly really limits how viable this card could have been if it wasn't a shining Pokemon, which all had really stupid energy costs. Next we have what I call the Mew on a Rock promo. Now in the collector's market, this card is known as Glossy Mu or Lily Pad Mew, but that's clearly a rock and not a lily pad. Glossy Mu refers to the Coral version you could get of this card, which was holographic, and it was later released at Pokemon Leagues where you could trade in points to get this promo card in its non-holographic form. Competitively, this is a solid card, especially for when it was released. Neutral Shield prevents all attacks, including damage, from evolved Pokemon. So this card could be used in the Neo formats, which relied heavily on evolved Pokemon. Almost every big deck at the time had a Stage 2 Pokemon in it. And if you did have to deal with a basic Pokemon, you had an attack for 1 energy that could deal damage and possibly stall out your opponent's basic. Mew on a Rock finally did get an English release in 2016, but it did have some adjustments made to it. So Psyshock was changed to Psybolt, and added energy was added to the cost, but also 20 damage. Neutral Shield was still great against evolution decks, but there were a lot of big basic EX Pokemon at the time that could one-shot this thing easily. Between 2003 and 2006, Japan had a Pokemon Players Club where you could earn points by doing various activities and attending events, and you could exchange those points for certain promo cards. During this time, there were 2 Mew promo cards that were part of the Players Club. The first was Blank's Mew, or Player's Mew. I always just call them your Mew because you're meant to insert your name into that blank space. And that first attack may seem weird because you say, how many Pokemon were there that had the your or player's Pokemon in its title? At the time, there were more. You had Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Celebi, and Jirachi. So this gave a way for those cards to actually play off of each other. And then also Energy Crush is pretty good against high energy decks. For 2 energy, you could deal a lot of massive damage late game. You could also exchange player points for a Mew EX promo. This is actually a great disruption card. Mutation not only lets you deal a little bit of damage, but can also really stall out your opponent early game. If you start the game with this Mew EX, you can keep your opponent from evolving into whatever kind of deck or strategy they're using at the time. Psy Teleport also has wording on it so that you get to choose whether or not this Mew goes to the bottom of your deck. So you can use Psy Teleport over and over again until it's about to be knocked out. Mew is an EX, so you're going to lose 2 prizes if it does. So you just put it on the bottom of your deck, and your opponent doesn't take any prizes, even if they've put damage on this card. As you may have suspected, neither of these Player Club promos ever saw English releases. But we did kind of get a version of these Player Club promos in the US in the Pokemon Organized Play promos, and there were multiple series of these. This Mew came from Pop Series 4, so you could get it from official events, but it was later featured as a special bonus card if you bought retail blister packs. While this card didn't see very much play, the Pop Series 5 Mew did. This Mew was a Delta Species Fire type and served as a great utility card for Rainbow Burn decks, which had copies of every type of basic energy in it, so Extra Draw would actually let you get energy you could use to copy almost any of your opponent's attacks. Not only that, but Golden Wing could add energy onto Mew so that Mew could use copy to revenge kill whatever your opponent had out. Meanwhile, back in Japan, we have the release of Rhoda's Mew, which came as a part of the movie commemoration versus pack to tie in with the movie Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And it is a pretty good card for a half theme deck, but not much use outside of that. Tree of Beginnings Mew is another commemorative Mew card that came out with the 10th movie set. This set included a special Pokemon promo for whatever legendary was featured in each of those 10 movies. So the Lucario movie actually got a Lucario and a Mew to represent that movie in the set. And viability wise, it's not bad either. Oh look, a Pokemon Rumble promo. Nothing to talk about here. During the Black and White era, there was a Mew Black Star promo you could get in retail blister packs. Not a whole lot going on with this one. It offers a hand refresh for Psychic decks, and it's got some fun art. In the US, if you bought the 20th Anniversary Deluxe set, you got a full art promo of Mew and Mewtwo, along with a little figurine of both. These cards look fantastic in person, and they seem much more high quality than your normal TCG card. They're a lot thicker, and the holographic foil seems to be layered on it. For a change, this version of the card was not available in Japan. Instead, they got 2 alternate art reprints of the card. All 3 versions of this card have really great art, and these 2 versions were exclusive to Japan. You could get them through a lot of player events like the Players Club. You could exchange points for these cards. Make sure you stay tuned for the part 2 to this video that talks about Mew cards that were not promotional. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.